is Joe Curbelo, who's the chair of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, commonly referred to the CITT. Welcome, and thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me here, Michael.
Okay.
It's my pleasure.
So this is a volunteer position.
Yes, it is.
And people want to know about volunteerism. And since you're doing that, all right, how did you wind up getting on that board, on this trust?
Well, the trust was created as part of the People's Transportation Plan, which the public voted on in 2002. And I, like most of the taxpayers, saw the tagline that we approved the half-penny surtax and we're going to have Metro Rail all over the community. And I was excited about that. I voted for it. I was happy that it passed, and subsequently disappointed when it appeared that we were not going to have Metro Rail throughout the county. And so I didn't want to be one of those people that just complain and write up scathing editorials. I wanted to get involved. I wanted to do something. And so I discovered the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust online, put in an application, and about a year and a half later, I was appointed by my commissioner to represent District 12.
So sometimes people say, why does it take so long for that? Was there not an opening at that point when you applied?
I don't believe there was. I don't know what the representation was prior to my sitting on the trust. But I started in May of 2010.
Well, and one of the things people want to do, they want to volunteer. We see that by people that joining, charities, and they join different organizations, whether it's the PTA or the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, whatever it is. So for the folks that are out there that are not happy with what's going on in their government, whether it's a local, regional, or state, there are lots of boards that people can be on. Tell us about the board itself, all right, what it does, and the composition of that board.
Sure. It's a 15-member trust, all volunteers, and we do have some full-time staff that manage the organization. And like I said, we have vacancies in 3 districts. I believe it's District 3, 5, and 10.
And where are those?
Honestly, I don't know.
Do we know where they are? We'll do a shout out for those areas. So if you could. So there's 3 openings right now for people that want to be involved with Dade County government, as far as the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, and they have input into what?
Input into how that surtax money is spent. There are items that come before us that we vote on for mainly for the Department of Transportation and Public Works. So anything that uses surtax funds, it comes to us before it goes to the Board of County Commissioners. And we also vote on items that do not use PTP funds that are at least $1 million.
Okay, so right now, the funding, what is the name that the mechanism that people commonly refer to it as? What was the name? Was that this is the half-cent sales tax?
Right.
So this is one people complained about a lot.
I agree, and right. Myself included, which is
yes. And because of that, that you're now in that position to try to balance that and make sure that it's a little bit better and that you have that input. So it's a 15-member board. There's 3 openings that are now. It's appointments by the area commissioner.
Correct, and
right.
We also have representation for the mayor's office and the League of Cities, the Miami-Dade County League of Cities. And even though the current vacancies are only in those 3 districts, we encourage anybody in any district to submit an application, because the vacancies come up periodically, and we would certainly keep an application on file.
Okay, if somebody wanted to talk to you personally, they wanted that right from the top of there, can they give you a call?
Sure, I'd be happy to
tell everybody what the number is.
Okay, so you can call our office at 305-375-1357, or you can visit our website at www.miamidade.gov/CITT.
So people can apply to join, to be appointed. And who appoints the commissioner appoints it, and he said, here's our representative from that area. If there's somebody that's in another area, but there's no appointments, nobody has applied to a different area, what could be done? Could the person call the other commissioner and say, hey, I'm in a different district, but how do I get on?
You have to be a resident of the district that you represent, or be appointed to represent the mayor's office or represent the
So if there's already a slot that's filled, and they live in a particular district, they could contact the mayor, right, and say, hey, I really want to serve in this organization. Find a spot for me.
Well, the mayor does already have an appointee.
Oh, I follow you. Okay.
So the mayor's office is represented right now. It's those 3 districts that are open. So anybody that's a resident of those 3 districts can fill those seats.
So you heard from the source, but I'm telling you, if you really want to volunteer, they can find a slot for you somewhere. Right? Our audience is looking, what are you saying, Miller? All right. So what gives somebody the other than wanting to volunteer, what would be an ideal person that lives in a district, right, that wants to do it? Do they have to have a certain type of background?
No, not at all. Myself, I'm a technologist by trade. I do not have a transportation background. I do not have a political background, which is what really helps, because a lot of these issues, transportation is one, can become very politicized. But in the CITT, we just don't have that. It's very, our volunteer members are very passionate about representing their districts and representing the taxpayers of Miami-Dade County.
So Joe, do people call you and complain to you as the chair about things that are going on? And what do you do when they call you?
I typically do not get phone calls. We do get citizens' comments and we have an opportunity. We meet once a month in the Commissioner Chambers Government Center, and we do have an opportunity for citizens to attend. They can just be passive observers at the meeting, or there are 2 opportunities within the meeting, at the beginning, at the end, to approach the podium and provide comments. And if you don't feel safe or you're unable to attend in person, you can submit your comments online by going to our website.
And prior to you filling out an application years ago and waiting a year and a half, what other sort of volunteerism were you involved with?
Well, I've been the Rides Committee chairperson for Everglades Bicycle Club. I did that for 2 years. When my son was in Boy Scouts, I was an adult leader for Boy Scouts and got involved with my daughter's Girl Scouts. I've been a flag football coach for my son and worked with my daughter's soccer team. So those type of things.
That's wonderful, because when you see how that grows, right, into this much bigger picture, when you applied, did you imagine that you might get accepted?
I was hopeful. I wasn't sure how competitive it was, but I submitted the application, and not knowing, I don't have a transportation background, but I talked about how passionate I was about helping our community with the transportation challenges that we have.
During the last year and a half, everybody's been suffering and learning at the same time. So there are a lot of people that have been assisting other people, right, in their time of need. This might be a really good time for people that enjoy volunteering to be able to reach out to other organizations, whether it's the county or CITT or whatever it happens to be, so they can continue lending a helping hand, because we know that when we help, right, other people, that most people feel pretty good about it, right? And we're delighted that you're doing that. So you've been now involved with the CITT for how long?
11 years.
That's significant.
Yes.
Wow. All right. And does the board get called before the county commission to have open discussions at BCC meetings?
We do not. I know that our executive director will attend the meetings, and certainly he can present the items that we vote on, the resolutions. They go before the county commission, and how we make an impact is that if we approve an item, then subsequently it goes to the Board of County Commissioners, and they just need a simple majority vote for it to pass. If we deny an item, then it takes a 2/3 majority for the BCC to overturn that.
Let's talk about the funding. I'm really not quite clear on it. This is an ongoing funding, or is the funding done, the half-cent sales tax? Has that over, or is that ongoing?
It is ongoing. Since 2002, it's the half penny, up to purchases of $5,000. Anything over $5,000, you're only paying the surtax on the first 5.
And how much a year does that tax generate for the road or county?
Approximately $300 million a year.
That's significant.
It is.
And tell us again how that 300 million might get spent.
Well, 23% comes off the top to go to the municipalities, and 33 of our 34 municipalities are spending that money. With the lone exception of Indian Creek, it's really too small a municipality to utilize the funds that they get. And you see in the different communities a lot of the free trolley services.
Yes.
They may do roadway projects within there.
So the freebies, that's what they're called down here. Is that the same up north?
It is, and a lot of the trolleys, the City of Miami, Coral Gables, and Doral, they all have the free trolley service.
And so they're using part of that 23% to fund this transportation.
Correct.
What effect has COVID had on that transportation? Is it getting the quantity of people getting on them?
Well, initially it had a tremendous impact. By nature, mass transit defies social distancing. So around the country, around the world, really, transit took a hit in terms of ridership and participation. At the same time, Miami-Dade County, with the funds that they got from the federal government, eliminated their fares, and right now it's still free to ride any of the county's public transportation.
And let's talk about Doral and their transportation system. Are you familiar with the kind of numbers that they had ridership? Probably not the last 12 months, but prior to that.
I'm not familiar with
I think it was 890,000 people use their transportation, which is like huge. I'm not quite sure about Palmetto Bay and South Miami, but I frequently see here in South Miami, it's relatively small, the ones that I see. But in Palmetto Bay, they have a step bus, and it's wonderful to be able to do that. Right now, they're using part of that money for those buses. So or that transportation, is that a long-term thing for these cities? And you don't dictate, does the county dictate how that money should be spent?
We do, to the extent that it has to be used on transportation projects, and we audit the municipalities on a regular basis to ensure that they're using it on ways to improve mobility in their communities.
It is such a pleasure when we hear some of the local cities say, take the freebie, all right? Tim Murbot, Cutler Bay, Karen Cunningham and Palmetto Bay, and Sally Phillips here with the local one here in South Miami. Coral Gables has one as well. Other than that, what are some of the other things that the cities might spend that money on?
Resurfacing roadways, improving areas around school districts. That was actually one of the biggest projects in our 5-year implementation plan, is safe school districts.
So when you say resurfacing, does that include traffic circles?
Yes.
So perhaps the traffic circles that South Miami did just a few blocks ago was built with that. I got to tell you, out of all the years, the most recent traffic circles are beautiful and functional. All right, some of the other ones weren't so good at the beginning, right? But the recent ones are tremendous. And we see that the city of South Miami just put in, a 4-block area asphalt. And when people tell you about how the money's being spent, the cities or the people that are on the buses, are they generally happy with that?
Sure. Once they understand how it's being spent, we get a lot of negative feedback about how it's not being spent. We're not extending Metro Rail everywhere, and certainly the community to the south would like to see Metro Rail extended from the Dadeland South Station all the way down to Homestead, as opposed to the BRT implementation that is actually going in right now. And we on the CITT Trust, we feel the same way, but we also understand the numbers behind it, and that's why we work with the county to ensure that what gets installed in that corridor is something that can be eventually upgraded to heavy rail.
So let's talk about the BRT.
Sure.
Since you brought it up, there was about a $300 million funding,
right.
Local, state, and national, right? And that's in the works right now, right?
Correct.
When do you suppose that might be working?
I believe in about 2 years.
And you had mentioned, and then to at that point, or maybe now, try to get to this next step, which might be what?
Well, to get to heavy rail, we need to get the ridership. Something that not everybody fully understands when they ask when they say heavy rail is what should be there, and is that you've got to, we can't just do it with local funds alone. We have to get the funds from the federal government and from the state, and we could not establish the ridership projection to get the funds from the government, whereas they were able to get the funding for the BRT solution.
And how many folks need to be riding that BRT in order for you could start considering making an application?
I don't know what the exact number is, but we can.
And is that a function of the trust to put that together, or is that a function of the upper levels of the county?
It's a combination, and typically we'll employ consultants such as IMG Rebel to do those studies and provide those.
So people ask me frequently, well, what's the difference between the BRT and a train? All right. So, and I'm baffled, other than the physical characteristics of it, which for the most part, I can't say are the same. The sounds might be a little different. Mm-hmm. But what's the rationale for doing it? Is there something magical going to happen when it's a train versus a brand new
Well,
buses?
I like to hear the comparison of BRT with trains. There's a lot of comparison of BRT with a standard bus, because it looks a lot more like a bus than it does like a train. But the biggest difference, what makes BRT so much more efficient than a normal bus, is your stations will have level boarding and prepaid fares. Just like when you go to a train station,
yes.
You pay the fare before the train even gets there, and you have level boarding, so you don't have any challenges climbing any steps. You just walk, multiple doors open.
And this is going to be on which vehicles? On the BRT?
This is going to be on the BRT vehicles on the South Corridor.
All right. And everybody's looked at lots of different plans over the last 15 or 20 years. So it's going to be prepaid, so you don't have to put your quarter into the thing anymore, right? That's how long it's been for me, do that.
Well, a few quarters.
So, and I'm still not sure, what is the difference between a modern BRT vehicle and a modern train that might be going, that the county may apply for?
Well, you may recall any time that there's a service issue with a train, with a Metro Rail vehicle, where they have to shut down a portion of the line. What happens? We come in with buses and we transfer people from one station to another via bus.
Yes.
With a BRT, you don't have to do that. The BRT can take an alternate route to get from station to station.
And how many people need to be riding daily, on average, on the BRT in order for the county to consider filling out applications to get federal funding for rail?
I don't have those numbers in front of me.
It's a lot,
but
tens of thousands.
Sure, I'm sure that it is. But this is a good logical step to get there.
100%. And perhaps it's one of those, we will build it and they will go. I get that. I mean, think about those big box stores that build out in the country, and then 10 years later you have all these red roofs all over, and because they took the chance, because they knew and they looked at it, so that's what's going to happen. We know in South Dade that's where huge amounts of property are being turned into a lot of apartments and homes. Some of them are magnificent, and all the hundreds of acres that are soon going to be apartments are in the works. And we know that the county has improved the zoning for land owned by that's in the county that is on the west side of the BRT, and to say you can have less cars because we think you're going to take that public transportation that's going to be there, and hopefully that will work. So in 2 or 3 years, we think the bus line, the BRT, is going to be functional.
Yes.
There's going to be a big ribbon cutting. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Ribbon cutting. We hope so. Right. So explain to us at the cross streets. How's that work?
Well, at the cross streets, what will happen is we'll have gates lower at the cross streets to allow the BRT vehicles to pass across those cross streets and function much like a train does. So the counter argument could be that, well, that's going to stop the cross traffic. Why don't we do a train? If we were to do heavy rail on that corridor, it was not contemplated to do elevated heavy rail, because it really is very expensive to do elevated heavy rail. And that corridor with the busway there, we have the opportunity to do at grade heavy rail. So instead of having the The third rail at ground level, it would be overhead wires that the Metro Rail vehicles would pick up their power from, and still you'd have the crossing arms coming down into all the cross streets, even if it was heavy rail.
I think that's what a lot of folks are wondering: how do we get from the east, to the west, et cetera? I saw some drawings a few years ago, maybe 10 at this point, where it was the over the intersections like those. You remember seeing those, I think. And people were looking at that, not sure what to think of it. And then I think I saw something that maybe went under the intersections, all right? But the county and the feds and the state have us all figured out the best way to manage that. We as drivers that don't know anything about it, we just want to have free access and be able to, skip across the street other than the stoplight whenever we want.
Sure. If you look at the New York subway system, and look at the Metro North vehicles, for example, the trains that go into Connecticut and Rhode Island, et cetera. All those they'll start at Grand Central Station as a subway vehicle under the ground, but then at some point in the Brooklyn area, all of a sudden those trains come out from the tunnel and they'll be elevated for a short while, and then they're at grade. So this is analogous to that, where we have elevated rail close to the downtown district. But then as you start to get further away from downtown, those rail vehicles may go to grade.
Yeah, and the number one thing that most people are concerned about, excluding this last year and a quarter, is how long it takes me to get to my job and home.
I agree.
And the traffic, and what are we going to do? And we have a young lady that she lives in Hialeah. She's been at home for years. She said, Michael, I'm not coming back. I'll do the work at home. I said, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Great for us. So the frustration that people have about traffic gets to the point where we think, well, we'll just do Metro Rail everywhere. And Metro Rail is how much a mile to do that?
Metro Rail is per mile. It's
$1 billion. Over $1 billion?
No, not that high. Not billions, but it is millions.
Yes.
So per mile.
All right, per mile. Okay. Mm-hmm. So a while ago, the county commission agreed to put in the, excuse me, Michael Rosenberg, the West Kendall Parkway, all right? And then it got killed for a variety of reasons. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's ultimately over or not. I'm not quite sure. But that was one of the methods that was being used, which is a shorter term method of transportation to get our friends from out west to be able to come north. And there was opposition on the other side saying, well, you're only going to save 4 or 5 minutes. I don't know. It was a great anti-campaign mm-hmm. that killed it. And then, of course, the Everglades, et cetera. So are there people, and the opposition killed that, all right? It wasn't save the Everglades. But the county said, we need to be very careful, and let's do that because the bigger good was to be able to move people with whatever method it was on. Mm-hmm. Is there, or are there people that are against the BRT, against the heavy rail, that are, and are those folks vocal?
They are. We hear from them from time to time, but there's been a shift. And if you think 30, 40 years ago, Miami is a very car-centric community. People don't want to get out of their cars, and that's one of the challenges of having mass transit. I mean, mass transit exists because there is a large sector of the community that relies on it. They do not own vehicles, but the choice riders, getting the choice riders to leave their cars and get into a mass transit vehicles has been a challenge until recently. The shift now, and you think of the millennials and the younger community, is they do not want to sit in their cars, because what happens when you sit in your car? You can't text, you can't be on social media. So that's really, there's a bigger push for using the mass transit, and if you look like along the Metro Rail corridor, particularly in the Dadeland district and the in downtown district and Overtown area, you see a lot of those condominiums rising right around the Metro Rail corridor or around the Metro Mover, because it's transit-oriented development where yes. you have easy access to that system.
We know in South Miami, on the Metro Rail station, they built 3 stories, some offices, but college housing, and then next to it, they're about to do another building. So during the last year and a half, there are a lot of people that correctly said, I don't want to be around too many people, all right? And from apartment buildings downtown to restaurants. And an interesting thing has happened that the fast food companies anticipate that there will be more people that want to stay in their cars, just the opposite. And when the drive-ins, and if you look at the new fast food restaurants that are being built, I was in one the other day, 1 cash registers, 2 kiosks, and no eating in the restaurant. And I've been timing as I go through there to get coffee in the morning. They're pretty good at it. And it's 60 to 80% plus plus of their businesses are from drive-through. So we go from this protective environment of a car, right, to this, oh my goodness, do I want to get on this public entity? And today, in 2020 and 2021, there are a whole bunch of people that are against it. But in 22 and 23, I think that it's going to probably open back up where people feel a little bit more comfortable, because we're all counting on the public transportation.
Sure.
And yes, ma'am, go ahead.
No, you had asked about the average cost of per mile on an elevated metro rail would be $140 to $150 million
Per mile.
Okay, that's a bunch of money.
That is.
Yes. So, and is the county, is the CITT at all concerned about how to move people from not using quantity of public transportation to getting on the BRT? Is that a concern, or you think it's just going to be a gradual process?
I think it's going to be gradual. I think certainly as people experience it and have a positive experience, word of mouth, it will get out, and people will start to embrace it more. The only negative thing about BRT versus extending Metro Rail is it's no longer a one-seat ride, where you get on the Metro Rail. If you were to get on an extended Metro Rail vehicle in Homestead or Palmetto Bay, you stay in that seat and you ride the same vehicle all the way downtown. There are other communities, such as New York City, where you don't ride just one train. You have 1 or 2 transfers on your commute. So to help mitigate that, part of this process is we want to make the transfer as seamless as possible, so that when that BRT vehicle pulls into the Dayland South station, it's going to come up to platform level, and you're going to exit that BRT vehicle, level boarding, of course, and you're going to walk maybe 50 feet to the waiting Metro Rail vehicle.
So, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't take public transportation very much, but when I do, it's like I'm going, okay, which one? Where am I going? And it's really the overhead microphones that direct. If you're going here, take this one, and so people will ultimately learn that. Do you know how many people take Metro Rail a day?
Do we have that number, Carla?
I'll
Okay,
Right.
we'll get you that number.
So as we look south, and we're relatively close to that area, and we have friends that live down there, and we know that is going to open up the folks that are down there that have essentially been cut off, all right? And that's what people do. They split neighborhoods, they put up expressways, they put up walls, right? You stay over there, you stay over here. And in wars, the way that works, cut off the airport, cut off the roads, bomb the bridges. So this is really going to open up and connect the folks from down there to the rest of the world, all right? And on something that is going to be attractive, it's going to be functional, and hopefully will be massively successul. I don't know how long it's going to take, but we know we have to start somewhere.
Absolutely. And Michael, that's just one of the corridors in the SMART plan. There's a total of 6 corridors, and the South Corridor is perhaps the furthest along, but there's a lot of development in the other corridors, with the Beach Corridor having a monorail going
Over the water?
alongside the causeway. And another portion of that, which is exciting, is going to be a Metro Mover extension further north. They'll take you into Wynwood and the Design District. Another corridor that's got a lot of progress is Northeast Corridor. The Bright Line is going to operate that corridor. The Aventura Station is already under construction. There'll be 5 stations in between the Aventura Station and the Miami Central Station downtown.
When we look at becoming a worldwide organization, meaning Miami-Dade County and South Florida, the transportation is a gigantic part of that.
Sure.
Right? Because if you don't have that, why are people going to come down here, and how are they going to get to work? Do you think there's going to be a time that that somebody might trade in their cars and say, I'm going to try, do without a car for 6 months or a year or 2?
I think so. Our executive director did that. one of the things that he said when we interviewed him, he served on the trust for 3 years. And he said that if he gets the job, he was going to sell his car, and he stayed true to his word. He sold his car, because now that he works downtown, he rides his bicycle, or he takes a train to work every day.
So do you know Victor Dover?
I do not.
Okay, Victor Dover. We have 2 minutes left. You know, he's an urban planner. He's been talking about live, work, play for as long as I can remember, decades. And he's a cyclist and triathlete. My hat's off to Victor and his team. And John Edward Smith, who is here active in South Miami, he gave up his car. He said, "I'm just driving I'm just going to take the bike or public transportation." So, and I think people have to be sort of coaxed into that. When they see it, we're going to like open the door. Is it safe to come in? And I hope the BRT moves along very nicely, and there's going to be this grand opening and be a big push for people to do that. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, pre-pandemic, in February of last year, average weekday boardings were over 67,000.
Okay,
people.
That's a bunch of people,
It
right?
is.
That's very good. Thank you very much. 67,000 people pre-pandemic. Say that a couple times. So that's really a lot of use, and we want to congratulate you on volunteering
Thank you.
for being really educated in this. All right, and it's nice to see somebody of your quality out there leading this organization. And so, folks, if you see him on the street, he's not the guy that's responsible for the traffic. He's trying to help this move along. So again, Joe Curbelo from the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, CITT, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. And I like to wrap this up with, I want you to imagine there's some young person out there, 17 to 25, is wondering about their life and their future. And I'd like you to give them some motivation or some suggestions. You can look right into this camera right here.
Well, Miami-Dade County is a wonderful community, melting pot community, so many different cultures, so many things to do. There's a reason that people come down here for vacation. It's just an incredible destination. So the infrastructure that we're building is really going to help make that experience a lot more productive, attract more industries. And the transit-oriented development is a huge push. I talked about Dadeland South and what we have in downtown Miami, but there's a lot more transit-oriented development happening along the Metro Rail line and other areas that are very transit-centric.
That's great. And by the way, we're going to wrap it up here in a second. Who knew 25 years ago when Metro Rail was put up that there'd actually be a park underneath Metro Rail? So congratulations to Meg and the team and the county who believed that could happen. Again, our guest today is Joe Curbelo, who's the chair of the CITT. Thanks for being here. Again, this is Live with Miami's Community News. Have a great day. And Tommy,